Hello, hi, and welcome to this little video where I tell you how I made my own DIY Scrappy yarn advent calendar. Yarn advent calendars are those typically beautifully crafted collections of 24 or 12 mini skeins of yarn that hand dyers or even maybe bigger yarn brands put together for you to purchase and receive during the holiday season. And then throughout the month of December, you open each little package up until Christmas Day. And for quite a few years, I couldn't bring myself to make the commitment to buy one because they typically have quite a high price point, which is very well deserved. There's a lot of work involved in putting together this whole thing, from dyeing yarn and skeins yarn and wrap all the mini skeins and package everything. So very well deserved price point. However, it is quite like a expensive purchase. And for myself specifically, the commitment was a little bit scary because I don't do well with surprises. So I didn't know if I was gonna love something that I paid but didn't know what I was gonna get. So I didn't know what colors I was gonna get, if I would actually like them, if I would actually use them in a project. So they just tempted me for quite a while. And this year, I actually have splurged and bought my own official advent calendar from a hand dyer after researching all the colorways that they have dyed during their lifetime. And I'm pretty sure I will love the advent calendar when I receive it. However, I think a very good option is to make your own. And you can build this advent calendar yourself using leftover yarn that you already have in your stash. And you can either send it to someone else and maybe they can do the same thing. So build a calendar for you and then you can swap so that each of you uses the other person's leftover yarn, which I think is so wholesome. However, and this might be maybe slightly controversial, you can make the advent calendar for yourself. And that's what I was gonna do this year before I actually found Creabe's or Rebecca Claw's Scrappy Advent swap that she hosted and organized. So what I actually did is I put together a calendar for someone else, for a fellow knitter, and then we'll swap. However, I was 100% ready to make an advent calendar for myself to enjoy in the month of December. And I think that if you don't have a partner in crime or like a fellow knitter that can swap with you, that they want to swap with you, you should make this calendar for yourself so that you get a little treat every day in December, or at least a few days in December. Cool. In terms of materials, you can make an advent calendar with 24 different colorways or maybe 12 different colorways, or you can actually make the entire calendar with just like a few balls of yarn by repeating the same colors throughout. In my specific case, what I did is I grabbed yarn from my stash, all the leftovers that I had, but even like single skeins of yarn that I didn't know what to use them for. I just put them all out, placed them on the floor quite randomly, and I looked at the situation and realized that I didn't have enough yarn to do like a 24-day advent calendar. And so my goal was the 12-day advent calendar made with 12 different colorways of yarn. I placed them on the floor, as I was saying, and I kind of tried to arrange them in some sort of color order just because it was fun. I think it's fun to see them in a gradient or kind of like a color wheel type of arrangement. And also because if I kept this same order for the person who was gonna open the calendar, I knew that they were gonna get mini skeins or mini balls of yarn already arranged in some sort of color order that would be pleasing to make like a scrappy project, like a cowl or a scarf or a blanket, so kind of already arranged. And in my case, all of this leftover yarn was in fingering weight, so maybe sock yarn or yarn that I've used held together with a mohair in a sweater or past project. However, I do think that you could mix and match fingering weight leftovers with DK weight leftovers to create the entire advent calendar. And what it means is just that the person receiving the calendar would have to hold the fingering weight scraps double if they wanted to use in the same project with the DK weight scraps. But you can make a note in the calendar when you send them to the other person and say, hey, there are like fingering weight yarns here, but also DK weight. If you just want to use all the scraps together in a project, just hold the fingering double and you're good. And while doing this process of placing together your leftovers, you realize that you don't have 12 different colorways. I think it's totally fine to repeat colorways as well. So you can make a 12 days or 24 days advent calendars with just maybe 4 colors. You would just split them up in mini balls of yarn so that they then repeat throughout the calendar. So you can do yellow, red, green, blue, yellow, red, green, blue, yellow, red, green, blue. And I think repeating colors would be so lovely in a blanket or shawl. So anyone receiving the advent calendar, I think, would be very happy nonetheless. And after you've selected your colorways that will go into the advent calendar, it's time for you to get rolling. Bowling, I don't know how you would say, but what you want to do is to actually start putting the leftover hank or cake or whatever into a mini bowl. And in my case, I actually did exactly what I'm doing right now. So start to make little balls of yarn like so. And whenever I got to good like size that looked good enough, I used my mini scale to actually weigh the mini bowl of yarn that I wound up so far. And if it was 10 grams or a little bit above 10 grams, I just snipped the rest of the yarn, and that would be my mini bowl of yarn, my first mini bowl of yarn. If you're a person that likes to actually make a little bowl look prettier and make it into an actual mini skein, feel free to do so. However, I love like mini bowls a little bit better in the sense that they're easier to make because you just wrap like so, but also they're easier to use. For the person receiving the mini bowls, they can just use the mini bowl of yarn as is and start knitting as soon as they open the package. Instead, if I were to send them as like a mini skein, they would have to wind them up in like a mini cake or a mini bowl of yarn. And so it just takes away knitting time. That's my thinking. And you can make bowls that are 10 grams. That's what I've done. And those are still a very good amount of yarn to knit up. For example, the Sweet Shop blanket by Laura Penrose, which is my current scrappy project, uses 10 grams mini skeins. Each of these colors just requires 10 grams. So that's still, I think, a good amount of yarn. However, you can make the bowls 20 grams. If you have enough, that's awesome. And once you have weighted all the balls of yarn and prepare them around you, I guess, you can put away the mini scale. And what you can do is to start putting those mini balls into some sort of wrapping. My choice were like very simple brown bags, mini bags, I guess. I don't know if you can tell, they're quite small and they're just very lightweight. They can be recycled or reused. It's just paper. But if you have like wrapping paper at home from like wrapping presents, that could be an option. Or tissue paper. I've seen people do tissue paper, but yeah, you just put your bowl of yarn inside the bag. And what I also added was a gift tag or a little piece of paper where I wrote down the name of the yarn, the brand, the colorway. If I remembered some of the colorways, I have no idea. I think a cute idea would also be to write down what project you've used the yarn for so that the person receiving can kind of think about, I don't know, you knitting that I don't know, specific sweater. So you can add in there a little tag with information about the yarn. You can also add other things. I would say, since this is a Scrappy Advent calendar, I chose to stay with like things that I already had. I didn't go out and buy new things to add in here. However, I did add tea bags. I am a tea lover, not a fancy tea lover. Like, I don't do exclusively like loose leaf tea or things like that. Like, I'm a tea bag lover, and so I had a good amount of tea bags at home that I could kind of mix and match, and I added at least one per bag. And since I'm a little bit psycho, I also tried to match the color of the tea bag with the color of the mini ball of yarn that was in the bag. I mean, each one of us has their own quirks. That's mine. I tried to match the tea bags with the yarn. And yeah, I put like some fancier tea, some basic grocery store tea. And the only other thing that I put in there was a couple of gently used stitch markers. I had a couple of sets of stitch markers with a little charm, and I use stitch markers with a charm only really for the beginning of the round of a project, and I had way more than I needed. I think they came in like a raglan stitch marker set, so that you would actually use them 8 per the yoke of a raglan sweater to mark your increases, but I would never use them for that reason, because the charm kind of gets in the way when you do the raglan increases. So I just had extra, and these are, I call them like gently used or lightly used. And I think the person receiving a Scrappy Advent calendar would be okay with like a used stitch marker, like in this case. So I didn't feel like I had to go out and buy new stitch markers to put them in here. I felt like I could just give away a little gently, lightly used stitch marker that kind of looks like new, because I really never used all of these ones that I had. And I put tea bags, as I mentioned, but you can put other things as well. Little pieces of chocolate, other things that you can eat, but also other things that you don't eat. I would not be able. I cannot do anything crafty that's not knitting, to be fair. But I know a lot of you are crafters in general, so you can just make other things that are homemade and you can add it in there. Yeah, and I think the only thing that's missing from the bag after you place the content inside is some sort of number on it. So you can put it on a little sticker and write the number there like I did, or you can just write with a marker like on the entire bag, write the number, just so that the person knows the order in which to open them. And the last thing I did, I think, was to write a little card, a Christmas card, to include with the Advent calendar, just with like some nice wishes and maybe some details actually about the Advent calendar that the person is about to open. If you're doing this for yourself, you can totally write a card for yourself thanking you for the hard work that you do, and just make yourself feel valued. Write some nice things for your future self to read. And I think you're done. If you are planning to mail this collection of little bags to someone, you would probably want to package them as safely as you can in a cardboard box. I just get a good amount of Amazon deliveries to my house, so I just hang on to an Amazon box that came to me, and I just reuse that one to put the little bags in, close it up, and it's ready to be shipped out. If you're instead hand delivering the Advent calendar to a friend, or if you're keeping this Advent calendar for yourself, maybe you want to put them in something that looks slightly nicer than an Amazon box. It could maybe be like a basket like so, or like a box that maybe just looks slightly better than like an Amazon delivery box. But that could be cute. If you're crafty enough to kind of decorate it a little bit, that could work as well. And that would be it. I will leave you with a little footage of the mini bowls that I prepared for the Scrappy DIY Advent calendar that I made. And also you can see the matching tea bags. And that's it for today. I hope you'll give it a go to making Scrappy DIY Advent calendars with leftovers. If you do, let me know how it went. Bye.